and welcome to the Amplifying Scientific Innovation Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sophia Ononye-Onyia, founder and CEO of the Sophia Consulting Firm, a life science marketing and communications consultancy that was established in New York City with the goal of amplifying scientific innovation. The goal of this podcast is to showcase scientific innovation stemming from global life science companies through conversations with senior leaders who share their unique leadership journey, corporate vision, and industry outlook. My guest today is Mr. James Keim, CEO of MIMOSA Therapeutics, a new bioreactor-focused psychedelic production company that is building on the psilocybin work that was previously done by OLP Therapeutics. MIMOSA Therapeutics is focused on developing psychedelic mushroom products that are precise, predictable, and repeatable for the purpose of medical research. James holds a Master's of Social Work degree from the Catholic University of America and a bachelor's degree in Social and Behavioral Science from Johns Hopkins University. James and I connected on LinkedIn based on mutual interest in medicinal and natural product chemistry. He has since introduced me to MIMOSA's founders, Amanda Fielding, who is a founder of the Beckley Foundation, the amazing Bob Stanley, and Anthony Gandia, a microbiologist and author. Welcome to the show, James.
Thank you so very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
It is my pleasure as well. So we're going to start with one of my favorite questions, which is fairly simple, but quite complex as well. What is your definition of scientific innovation?
You know, on a gut reaction, it is something that is so provocative and so challenging that it gets people pissed off in all the right ways. So, you know, I think the critical aspect is that it not only smashed some pedestals, but that it moved the conversation forward. So it's not just about introducing a new idea, it's about moving the conversation forward and really changing the bigger paradigm. And it thus has to take the discussion to that really intersectional point of scientific debate. And that's my thought on that. So
that's profound. I like that. I think that's really deep. But, you know, you've accomplished quite a lot over the course of your career. And I've been told that this particular question often feels like being asked to pick a favorite child. But what would you consider to be your most impactful achievement to date?
Gosh, you know, I had thought that my contributions would relate to more of my ideas about systems theory and human behavior, but it turned out to be innovations in how to produce psilocybin. So this turned out to be where I'm making a greater impact on the world.
Wow. Well, that's good. And along the same lines then, what is the meaning behind the name of your company, MIMOSA Therapeutics, and what is your vision for the future?
So the mimosa tree is a very beautiful tree with lovely, delicate leaves, gorgeous flowers. And some of the varieties produce a powerful psychedelic in their roots. So it is the DMT content of the mimosa root that inspires our name. It's
Wonderful.
Also the name of a nice drink, but that wasn't that wasn't the inspiration.
So what is your vision for the future of the company?
Well, our initial focus is on psilocybin products. And so our great step forward is we're making the first medical grade quality natural psilocybin. And although there are synthetic and GMO products that are in the FDA pipeline, And that might be here in probably as short as 3, but probably more likely 4 to 5 years before the first ones arrive. Natural product is what is available at this point. And we are the suppliers of that to researchers. And in markets such as in the Netherlands, where it's legal right now, we plan to be supplying clinicians there.
Wow. Wow, that's really impressive. So tell me more about any other sort of ongoing work or potential work that you're doing at MIMOSA as we speak.
Well, you know, the real challenge is first describing chemically, labeling this product effectively and accurately. So we want to have a psilocybin product that is sold not by weight of the mycelium content, but rather in a more medical grade fashion and by weight of active ingredient. And that's not currently done. And that's one of the reasons why natural product has not been used in research, despite the fact that it's suspected by many of being superior to any monotherapy. So as you may know, the different products that are coming out tend to be just singular molecules. Variants on psilocybin that are patentable, for example, but that miss the entourage effect that is the gift of nature.
Right.
And I'm always amazed, given the complexity of botanicals, and I know from your research, this is one of your passions, that you know, I'm really amazed that any one molecule does anything by itself. Because in nature, these don't exist in isolation. These exist in systemic collaboration, in complex engagement with not only other therapeutics, other chemicals, other terpenes and such within an organism, but interactionally with others as well. So it's not just about the fungus, it's about the fungus interacting with the soil, it's about the fungus interacting with the tree, it's about the fungus interacting with other fungi. And to be able to really bring the beauty of this complexity to medicine, we need to find ways of doing that in a responsible way. You know, and this for thousands of years has been one of the challenges of pharmacy. How do you create standardized, therapeutic, safe, replicable natural products? And so we are one company that is just joining this long challenge, and in doing so, bring the best of nature to people, and not sort of being cheap and just offering one molecule.
Right. Very well said. I've always personally believed that the answers to all our questions can be found in nature. And we just have to go out there and to the point you made earlier, understand the systemic approach. That is not just one thing. It's a complexity that we just have to take the time to really understand.
It is, yeah. It is.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Coming up with solid scientific models for the exploration of that level of complexity, that's really challenging. You know, if we think of it just on the simple level of conversation, you know, how many conversations can happen with one person? That's one person speaking out loud. That's one monotherapy. 3 people, you know, you 5 people, 20 people. There are an immense number of conversations that can happen. And how do we bring these back to our therapeutics? And that's one of the lovely parts about being about natural product, because although we are feeding FDA and DEA pipelines, I think what's really interesting is when you have products that, because they're natural, because they're agricultural products, allow for quick evolution and quick distribution. So within the fungi world, there seem to be some fungi that are better for depression, some better for anxiety, some better for PTSD work. And as we evolve these understandings, we can really quickly evolve our therapeutics. That's really difficult to do in the synthetic or GMO space because, so anyway, we, by focusing on the natural space, we're actually able to create a cloud information system. Go to the cloud, ask the psychedelic community, ask the clinical community for feedback on our therapeutics. What are they good for? How can we improve? And we can quickly evolve them that way. So
that's powerful.
It is powerful, and it's one of the beauties of natural products.
Great. And you can imagine in the past 15 or 20 years or so, we have seen a shift really from traditional medicinal chemistry towards biologics. So thinking from that perspective, how do you think the biotechnology industry has evolved in the past decade or so? And what are some loopholes? What are some missing gaps in the evolution of the industry?
You know, I think an agreed upon challenge is that the industry has been evolving much more to fit the needs of regulatory agencies than to meet the health needs of the general population. And that's an understandable and necessary tension in a way. It doesn't take much for for a twist in a synthetic molecule to make things go very badly for patients. And so I don't want to knock the process, but at the same time, I think we need to look at how the regulatory process sometimes really impairs clinical progress. And a big example of this is, for example, pediatric labeling. As you know, I've been involved in the Best Pharmaceuticals for Children Act conferences that are hosted at NIH for over a decade. And these are collaborations between FDA, NIH, and pharma industry, where we try to create pediatric labeling, which is really challenging. You know, there's a $200 million plus minimum pipeline expense for adults, and adults are just one pharmaceutical model. If you think of Tanner stages, you know, you need to do about this research for about 6 different pediatric populations: preemie, regular term, toddler, et cetera, et cetera. And we really need to, I think, work in a way that is more focused on the needs of our population, and especially our pediatric populations. We also need to have more I think more ways of doing fast evolution that are still safe, and allow for I think much more complex and cloud-based research, and getting through these later research phases much faster, because a 8 or 10 year pipeline for medication is ridiculous. It's so old school.
I agree. Yeah.
And especially because probably the beauty of most pharmaceuticals is in their interaction with other pharmaceuticals. In the same way that you're missing a lot with like with cannabis, for example. My grandmother, when she was terminally ill with cancer, was given Marinol, you know, pretty much pure THC. And she was not very impressed with it. So, but it wasn't very interesting, and it served the hunger, but it take us 20 years later, and I have a friend who's in a UCSF program where she's being treated with a cannabis products, and went from having a life expectancy of about 3 months to being in great shape and having her cancer in remission, thanks to a UCSF research program using cannabis products. And they use these, it is the complex multi-spectrum therapeutic that is so powerful in cancer approaches, not the single monotherapy of THC.
Yeah.
So finding ways to encourage interactional pharmacy is really where things are at. And I especially love the repurposing research, which still tends to be very simple. But I think we're getting close to the point where we can start looking at interactions of multiple therapeutics based on our molecular understandings and based on the amazing advances we are making in cellular culture.
I really like your response because it just shows you the multidimensionality that is required to sustain innovation. And we must all come together and to the point you made earlier, think about even repurposed drugs, for example. Have we found all the utility, and are we also focusing on safety as you correctly highlighted earlier? So thank you for sharing that.
That's right. And really some of our therapeutics in LSD, psilocybin and so on, you could almost think of them that being that way, because where I trained at the Mental Research Institute in Palo Alto, they researched these drugs in the 60s under NIH grant. These have been around for a long time. They had wonderful and interesting outcomes that were published. And yet they were shut down for political reasons, you know, and they inspired really the whole revolution, though, in psychiatry. As you know, SSRIs, SNRIs, owe their existence to Albert Hoffman's LSD creation.
Wow.
And
So
it just has to continue.
Absolutely. And I couldn't think of a better time during this conversation to actually ask you this question around COVID-19. What do you think we could have done differently as an industry to mitigate the impact of COVID?
So if, you know, we can, I think, let me start by noting one thing that really positive that happened, which is the number of companies that jumped into the game that are working on vaccines. That is really positive. That was gorgeous. But one of the reasons we have this tragedy is because of the top-down censorship and shaping and even prevention of messaging. So part of good science is society and science have to interact in a way that's brave, where different opinions come out and can battle it out based on the strengths of their arguments and without fear. And this is a period of fear. People are scared. People are scared. There are games that are played with funding, with censorship that are just unconscionable. And it has been so sad to see how that repression has happened here in the United States. So I think we're going to see a lot more innovation coming from outside the United States than from inside the United States around COVID for those reasons.
And once again, very well said. I think that what I appreciate about your perspective is just you say the truth and you say it in a very calm manner, and it's like, these are my thoughts, and I wish things were different, but this is sort of where we are. So thank you for your honesty. It's very much appreciated.
Yeah, fortunately, I don't have any grants or jobs that are at risk, so I can be I can speak up.
Oh, that's great. So my next question for you, and it's okay if it's about your company, but I just want to know, is there any technology or company that you're currently excited about, and why?
Yeah, I am so excited about my company. So. I'm excited because my company has a community feedback informed approach. So that means that the evolution of our therapeutics is only in a minor way informed by our own personal opinions, and for the most part is going to be in an ongoing basis informed by what the community tells us is useful, is helpful, is therapeutic about our creations. That ongoing process means that we can actually make changes in our therapeutics in a matter of months. It really means that the evolution of natural therapeutics with bioreactors, it resembles much more that of software. We merely have to change algorithms or nutrient bases, or at worst an impeller, and we have an interesting change in evolution in a therapeutic. So that to me is so exciting, that speed of evolution. And to be working in psychedelics, which my clinical background is in trauma therapy, and I've taught nationally. Psychedelics are just fantastic for this. They're everything that we had wished SNRIs and SSRIs would be.
Yeah. Well, thank you for educating us on that. I don't think a lot of people truly understand that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm grateful that we have this platform, because people have to know about alternatives other than what I call the usual suspects, so to speak.
You know, the model that best explains how antidepressants work is the model of neuroplasticity. That these work not because they give you in the moment more or less serotonin, but because they evoke lovely or sometimes not so lovely changes in your brain. The first hint that Prozac could do that was when people started noting that lazy eyes were in adults recovering. And that's unbelievable, because we know if we, with a child with lazy eye, if before a certain age, we can patch the strong eye, and the brain will connect even more strongly to that weak eye, and thus affect a cure. That sort of plasticity in the brain has a window, and after a certain age, it doesn't work anymore. You're stuck, or the thinking had been, with a lazy eye. And sometimes with Prozac, an accidental finding, some of these lazy eyes were spontaneously recovering in adults. Unheard of. It speaks to unexpected neuroplasticity. And research with fMRIs really speaks to this, that changes are predicted by changes in hippocampal and other volumes and interconnectivity. That's where it's really at. So paying too much attention to just serotonin levels, that's been not a really helpful path. Paying attention to what may be an accidental connection, which is that it's the changes in brain structure that are affected by these therapeutics. That's where it's at. And that's where psychedelics are at. They are helpful not because of what they do in the moment, but because of the changes in brain structure and plasticity. And, one of the books that kicked off this current revolution in psychedelics is Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind. And the title is right on target, because these do change your mind. These create plasticity, and in the context of a well-considered therapy, you can do a lot for change. People can change themselves. The problem with,
No, I was agreeing with you. Go ahead. What is the problem?
Well, the problem with SNRIs and SSRIs, there was actually change happening with those also, but you didn't know when it was going to happen. And also the way that prescriptions are given out without people being in therapy meant that the window of plasticity might open up in a bad way, because plasticity is not necessarily good unless you change your mind in a good way. You can also change your mind in a bad way.
Right.
You can model yourself neurologically around bad living, around pathology. And that's one of the reasons why I suspect we haven't seen better outcome from SSRIs and SNRIs. There's some people who are most definitely helped, but the statistics show that it seems to be sort of even, which means there are a bunch of people who are being harmed even by these drugs. And I suspect that is because plasticity is happening in moments and in ways where we can't really attend to them. The psychedelic therapy, by golly, it happens right there, and the psychedelic makes you a better clinician, because you have to be right there with a patient who's doing a session dose, and you have to be on your toes, and you have to be on your best, and you get pretty immediate feedback if you're not. That makes for a good experience and a good clinical window. And compare that to giving someone a script for Prozac, and then maybe 4 weeks out, 3 weeks out, they get their window, and it happens to be when they're in a really horrible space. And that plasticity happens when they're being exactly who they don't want to be. Yeah.
Well, I think the bottom line for me, at least, from listening to you, is that we have to be open-minded about innovation. And so when I think about that context, it's my follow-up question sort of flows fairly easily. So I'm curious to know, and you alluded to this earlier, of course, is what are some key consideration factors that will be important for sustaining innovation in the life science industry?
So continuing the conversation, I mean, if it's a tennis match and you've aced your opponents, it's the end of the conversation. And that's not innovation. The innovation has to be when the ball comes back at you. And the better the innovation, the faster it comes back at you, and the scarier it comes back at you. So the more open source the science, the more it allows other people to pick it up and argue with it and innovate. I think that's where it's really at. In a way where we really have only contributed true innovation if rather quickly we become obsolete. Our own obsolescence is the proof of our contribution. The faster you find someone on your shoulders who's then working at a higher level, the greater your contribution has been. And that's scientific contribution, that's scientific innovation, but it's not, it hurts the ego.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be about the ego, I still think that the focus should always be on the patients, on making the most impact. That, think about a therapy. Are we improving efficacy? Are we improving safety? Are we making patients' lives better? Because ultimately, as COVID has taught us, we're all patients at some point in our life cycle. Just my 2 cents.
That is absolutely. And the ego of the innovator, I think, has to be a new focus. Because to the degree that there's ego, there is rigidity in moving forward. Because when you hit the ball across that tennis net, and if your ego is too big, you don't want it to come back. And yet it's got to come back. And if you've done a great job, it comes back even stronger than you hit it over.
Yeah.
And yet, as we know, because we've been in school and we've dealt with egos. And
just in school.
And as a woman and as a Black woman, you have challenged more egos than most. So you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do. I mean, my journey from Nigeria to the US has been almost exactly about challenging the status quo. I think that you have the right to be who you want to be, and how you choose to define yourself is up to you. For me, it's being a scientist and an entrepreneur and connecting with people like you, because that's what makes the world fun, and we should have fun, right?
We should have fun, and we part of the training of the innovator should be in ego reduction.
Exactly. I agree. So my final question for you is fairly simple. I always like to open the floor for my guests to share their thoughts or commentary, anything that you feel like, might be relevant for anyone that is watching or listening to this podcast.
Yeah. First, for people who have been suffering depression and PTSD and other challenges, please be optimistic, and please learn some of the lessons of psychedelics, which speak very much to the importance of relationship in evolving past our tragedies and our pains in life. It is psychedelics teach us about the ability to transcend pain, to find new purpose, and to change and evolve who we are from the deepest levels of our wiring. And perhaps the most important contributions of psychedelics are the ways that they teach us that a lot of these changes are available in other areas of life. And so my true hope is that people are inspired by MIMOSA and the works of a lot of other great companies to optimistically work on changing yourself, on being happy, on changing society, and on staying optimistic about what this world has to offer.
That's great. Optimism and joy and reduction of egos. Those are some of the few nuggets just the few that I'm fascinated just by our conversation so far. And I appreciate it's been fun having you here on the show today, and obviously look forward to future conversations.
Thank you so very much. It's been lovely. Bye-bye.